I'd like to call to order the March 24th, 2009 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. May we have the roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond.
Here.
We should probably wait until our folks downstairs have had a chance to catch up, since there's an adjournment up on the screen.
Did we do it too fast? Is there coffee break?
Okay. Computer issues aside, roll call, please.
Agency members Draymond.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Yusefian.
Here.
Chairman Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the March 24, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, March 19, 2009 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Do we have any minutes?
No, not at this time.
Minutes. Next item, please.
Next item is oral communication, and discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Redevelopment Agency may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision, and the matter may be referred to staff through the Executive Director for an investigation and report.
Thank you. I don't have any cards. I will close oral communications. Let's move on to the next item.
Item 6 on the business agenda at 6A is Director of Development Services regarding proposed Hyatt Place Glendale development to be located at 225 West Wilson. At A1 is a motion authorizing the Executive Director to extend the exclusive negotiating agreement with Comar Investments, LLC, for 6 months until October 10, 2009. At 6A2 is a motion approving a change order for Kaiser Marston Associates in the amount of $15,000 for financial and economic consultant services for a total contract not to exceed amount of $544,500.
Thank you. Do we need a report on this? Mr. Yusefian?
Yes, a couple of questions from staff. First of all, as I talked to one of the developers, architect, I was told that most of the items have been submitted. So why do they need 6 months? Why can't they get this thing done in 3 months?
Aside from the design, they have the environmental review, and there are some DDA issues that we're still working through. Some of that is tied to current financing and lending practices and how we structure our deal to accommodate those. We believe that 6 months we could finish the environmental review, have it distributed, and public review and back to you. That's an outside time for us.
Okay, but it could happen earlier than that.
It could happen earlier.
The next item is on the A2, which is the $15,000 additional to Kaiser Marston. How much money do we have left over on that account?
There is approximately $15,000 left of the initial deposit.
So we've used
Left.
we've used we've used $540,000. We've used that.
That's a good point, Mr. Yusefian, and we should have clarified in here. This is the total contract for Kaiser Marston for many projects that they work on for us. And what we've tried to do is give you, in all of our change orders, from inception, what is the total amount of the contract. This one, I believe, is the initial deposit was $50,000. We've used some of that for legal counsel as well as Kaiser Marston.
Next time, I think it would be helpful for me in this title when you put it down is project specific, because people were like, geez, they got $544,000.
You're absolutely
They
right.
want another $50,000. What are they doing for $500,000?
Mr. Starman?
Mr. Chair, if I can, I made a note to myself to talk to the staff about that. To clarify, this is the amount that Kaiser Marston has earned through their contract on all the projects they have worked on for the past 8 years. So it's averaged about $70,000 a year on all the projects. It sounds like it's related to this one, but it's not. It sounds like it's 1 year, but it's not. It's actually 8 years from the inception that they began working with us.
So it's very misleading.
Yeah, and we'll correct that so it's a better representation.
Mr. Quintero, then Mr. Draymond.
I just want to comment how important this project is to the business health of the downtown. Both this and the proposed 4- or 5-star hotel on Brandon Wilson, those two projects are really going to invigorate our mid-Brand shopping district. So I just hope we can move forward as quickly as possible and have it built and have the business people and traveling public be able to use these two facilities. So I hope we'll move forward soon, 6 months or less.
Mr. Draymond.
I was just going to answer the question you posed at the outset, Mr. Chair, which was simply, do we need to see a report? And from my standpoint, I don't need to see a report. I think we all agree this is a very beneficial project for the city, has been. We've all sort of felt that way from its inception, and Komar has clearly been right on top of this and walked it through the front door and the whole way, and has pretty much, well, not pretty much, has done exactly what they said they were going to do at every step. So I'm perfectly satisfied.
Very good. Would someone like to make a motion?
6A, 1 and 2.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Chairman Najarian.
Yes. 6B, please.
At 6B is Director of Development Services regarding Buy Glendale promotional campaign. At B1 is motion providing direction to staff. And at B2 is resolution appropriating $150,000 to provide funds for a promotional campaign.
Mr. Lanzafame.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, 2 weeks ago you had asked us, there was a suggestion that perhaps we could promote small business through our employee associations and the employees. You asked us to expand on that idea and come back with a program that would promote small business throughout the city to all of our residents. So what we've done is we put together an outline of a program for you. We are trying to, this program is intended to take proactive, affirmative steps to stimulate our local economy, to promote and retain small business, and preserve jobs. And I think a conversation I had yesterday, just yesterday, with a merchant that is closing their doors after some 50 years really highlights the need for this, the education portion. They were announcing their closing, and many of the customers that hadn't been in the store for 10 years, they said, my gosh, you can't close. You've been a stalwart here, but they had not spent money in the store. They may have bought a letterman's jacket for their child some years before. And the point he was trying to make is we need to have people using our services, buying our goods, if we're going to maintain. So it's really important for us, it highlighted for me at least, that this program should be part education on the importance of shopping locally, especially in this economic time, as well as a promotion of our small business. We've designed the program to be flexible so that we can start and implement it immediately and grow it and refine it over time. Admittedly, we've not had a chance to really dig in with the merchants associations and business groups to refine that program. We brought it to you, and upon your approval, we will be having more formalized meetings with those groups. But as I said, this is an outline of a program that we put together, and I'd like to ask Ken Hitz to give you a brief description of the program. And while he's doing that, Mr. Mayor, I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation for you. It contains one slide. It is the logo that our development or our TV graphics people have prepared for us. Artie, if you could put that on the screen.
Are you taunting the mayor with
The mayor
threats
isn't
of a
and the mayor isn't even chairing the meeting, so
We did it specially for you.
thank you. I'll never say you never gave me anything. Thank you, Phil.
Agency Chair, members, city staff, good afternoon. My name's Ken Hitz, Economic Development Manager. Essentially, I'd like to reiterate what Phil mentioned earlier, this campaign is primarily targeted to create awareness as well as to stimulate economic activity with the merchants, both in downtown Glendale, all of the business districts, as well as throughout the city. What we've done is essentially outline a program for you that has several elements to it. Those elements include certainly, again, community awareness. We want to make it highly visual. We wanted to encourage merchant participation, as well as encourage residents, workers, and shoppers to learn more via the press, GTV6, potentially a website, loyalty card, cable ads, etc. Some of the program major critical elements that we have to undertake are outreach to merchants, businesses, to introduce the program and encourage participation. Secondly, print and possibly distribute some sort of discount loyalty card or collateral material. And thirdly, promote and market the program citywide via several media venues. Our marketing mix branding options include local news, print, media, GTV6, charter cable television, a website which we've already purchased, a URL, byglendaleca.com, light pole banners, public transit, particularly on our B-Line bus ads, public transit, bus shelters, public works on our refuse trucks. We have space for advertisements there. Also, we have the potential to include direct mail, collateral material, possible theater stills, city events, and certainly email marketing. We're looking at an early launch, potentially early May, and this will be a one-year pilot program. So that's kind of essentially the nuts and bolts of it, the framework, as we had outlined in the report. So,
Okay, I do have quite a few cards, if my colleagues would. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you. Mr. Hitz, did you meet with the downtown merchants, Glendale downtown merchants?
had conversations on an individual basis, but not as a group. We did introduce the program on a couple of their meetings.
And are they in agreement with what you're proposing?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Weaver, I think everybody that we've talked to, and they have been in formal meetings, is very supportive of the city taking some proactive program. Some of them have different ideas, whether they could be added to this, what should the focus be. This is really your program, and so we would like to get your input and then start to incorporate those things that will be helpful for those merchants.
Well, that's not what I was told by the downtown merchants, who do not agree with components of this. Maybe I'll hear different here today, but they said they did not agree with you on certain components, namely them giving discounts when they're already hard up. And you walked away and came back with it in here still. So some are here today. Let's hear if they have something different to say. Okay?
Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll go to the public. Mike Mohill. 3 minutes already. Followed by Barry Allen.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Mike Mohill. Headline news: City push local business in media blitz. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I've been talking about headline news all last year, and finally, we're getting some attention for the redevelopment agency. Gentlemen, can you just imagine that instead of giving the city employees another pay raise last year of $8.5 million, we could have given that money to the many small businesses that line Brand Boulevard. Also, can you imagine, had we not decided to purchase Rock Haven last year, we could have saved an additional $8.5 million. That $17 million in savings could have been used to help the many small businesses with their utility bills. After all, our city has the distinction of having the second highest utility rate in the state. Hindsight is wonderful, gentlemen. We could play the game what if. What if the sum did not rise and fall? What if we had more sales taxes than the previous year? What if the country did not have a financial meltdown? What if council read the financial news last year before I came before the council with my headline news articles for several weeks in a row stating our grim financial situation and worsening? What if home values continued to rise and fall, transfer more money to the general fund and pay more city wages? What if we did not let the city reserves dwindle these past several years? What if? Yes, hindsight is wonderful, but by paying more wages, you would get better employees? This is the argument Councilman Weaver and others who have taken union money for their political campaigns, then months later voted for the same pay raises. Let us hope that Mr. Weaver and the other councilmen had the best interest of the city at heart. Here was another example. Yesterday, as I walked over to the Internet Cafe on Brand Boulevard, I found out that businesses closed the door last month. Perhaps a little government help beforehand might have saved that business. This past month, as I walked the Central Business District from Colorado Boulevard to the Hilton Hotel on Glen Oaks Boulevard, I have unfortunately noticed many of the for lease signs along the boulevard. The Redevelopment Agency is now planning to spend $150,000 to promote a Buy in Glendale campaign. Why? This is telling me, and I'm sure others, that Glendale, specifically our city councilman, city manager, and senior staff, has failed the public's trust. What do you think our neighboring cities official must think of us now? Sure, we got one of the most successful shopping malls in Southern California, called the Glendale Galleria. And last year, with a bang, the Americana was open too. But by having more expenses than revenues these past years, we look like fools who do not know how to balance a budget or project one either. Passing water bonds and raising utility rates have not made us business friendly.
Thank you, Mr.
Rents are
Mohan.
also high and people are self-deporting themselves. No need
Mr. Mohan.
No need for rent control as rents are high enough.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan.
Okay, thank you.
We don't want to cut Barry Allen short. Barry Allen.
It was long.
I'm watching out for you, Barry. I want you to know.
I thank you. I think the last one that cut me short was the Moyle.
I thought we had 5 minutes. Excuse me, Art.
We are a family-rated show here, Mr. Allen.
What can I say? Well, we have to have some levity. Anyways, thank you, Mr. Chair, and the agency members, staff, and of course the public. I'm Barry Allen with Van Guardians, and I was really excited to read the staff report regarding this program. But I was kind of disappointed that with the materials around it, and the speaker following me, I assume Joseph Rotter, is the person who has spent 5-6 years totally investigating loyalty cards. In fact, he was one of the experts that I used on a whole series of radio programs in Phoenix not too long ago. And he is one of the experts in this particular area. He has spent a tremendous amount of time investigating and actually using the American loyalty cards. It's exactly what the city's looking for. And it's something that could be rolled out tomorrow or the next day. In fact, he'll probably show you some of these. Here's one. It's a VIP card. I don't want to show it to Scott Howard because he said, I'll take that away. It's got a city seal on it. But it's something that it's something that is possible, can happen soon, and the program's already done. In fact, for lunch, Joseph and his wife and I had lunch at one of the merchants who uses the American Loyalty Card, and we got our 90% discount. It was absolutely great. So I think this is something that...
I think that was an error, Mr. Mayor.
You like that?
How many percent? 90%? I want 2 of those.
They don't give you 180%, only 90, one at a time. But this is certainly something that he could work with staff to get developed, and you could work with Joseph to find out about all of this without really having to reinvent the wheel. 150 merchants in Glendale are already using this card in this particular system. Obviously it works. It's in other cities, and certainly this gives you an opportunity to tap the skills and the talent of someone who's already been there. I'm Barry Allen. I thank you for the time, and hopefully if there's a little 2 on the top of the card, Joseph Rotter would be next. Thank you.
And he is.
Did he mean 10%? Mr. Chair, did he mean 10% discount or a 90% discount?
Whatever, Mr. Dream. Whatever.
Duly noted, Mr. Allen. Whatever. Okay.
Joseph Rotter, followed by Gene Maluccio.
You walk in, you show the card, and you just pay whatever, and you walk out.
No, not there.
Okay, where would you like it?
Oh, is that his?
Turn it so the public can see.
That's fine. I was very...
Could that be moved? We don't allow that. Over here.
You put it over there, the camera can catch it.
No, the other side.
Where it was.
We're on the side where it was.
That's the last time we let Mr. Allen stage the displays.
And the camera just pans into it so you can see.
Okay. Mr. Rotter.
Thank you. I was very delighted to hear what Mr. Weaver had to say about the fact that the Merchants Association was a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of giving up 10% when they're not making enough money.
And give us your name for the record.
I'm sorry. My name is Joseph Rotter, American Loyalty Card Incorporated. And after 5 years of working on this thing, if anybody had done the studies that are available from the industry, the loyalty card industry, you would have found out that about 3.5 years ago there was a very large article indicating that unless the loyalty card changes, it's going to die. The loyalty card gives the merchant a chance to get less money. That's basically what a loyalty card does. Yes, it might bring some customers in, but they had to have a change. We created the change. You have to be able to track the trades, and you have to be able to show the merchant that he can in fact make money with the loyalty card by sharing profits with all the other merchants that are participating. This is what this American Loyalty Card had done and is doing. We have now 120 merchants in the Glendale area that have already signed up to accept the card. They're just waiting for the cards to show up. So when I heard that Glendale is looking to do something like that, preparation met up with opportunity is usually what they define as luck. So I feel very lucky to be here to hear that somebody finally figured out that maybe we should do something to generate business, not one way, but both ways. The first step has to be to initiate and introduce the program to the market. Once the market has the understanding, then the second phase is very easy because most merchants would like to make additional funds. And they can make additional funds. I don't know if anybody has ever done the research in that direction, but the average person spends less than 3% of his money in one place. That leaves 97% of the money someplace else. And the average merchant would like to participate in that 97% if he could. So why not offer that opportunity to all the merchants to create a networking system that allows each merchant to be participating with all the other merchants in the marketplace? The person that buys a suit will also buy a pair of shoes someplace, but the store that sells the suit doesn't sell the shoes, and vice versa. My offer to Glendale is right now is, while you're in the development stages, let me help. You're going to have some meetings, you're going to have some discussions, let me help. I think I can. I don't know how else to say it other than to say you people need to, I looked at the budget and there are several items on the budget that can be improved upon. The cards are there. I have 22,000 cards that are waiting to be distributed. We can get started next week if you guys want to start this thing in a hurry. The
Thank you,
project
Mr.
that you have, I'm sorry?
Your time is up.
Okay.
But Ken or Mr. Lanzafame, if you can certainly spend some time with Mr. Rotter, I think he may have some good ideas as to what you're trying to accomplish.
During
Mr. Weaver.
a couple questions. Sir,
Yes.
have you met with the Downtown Merchant Association?
I tried to meet with them and they were not receptive. The chamber wasn't receptive.
Chamber wasn't either.
Nobody. I've tried this. As I said, I've been at this for the last 4.5 years, since the end of '04.
So those are two groups we look to for concurrence. In
Well,
anything.
maybe when the city hall and city is behind it, maybe they'll be more receptive.
How could we be behind it unless we know what our own merchants are thinking?
Well, it wasn't the merchants that weren't receptive. The merchants are very receptive. I have yet to have a merchant say to me, "No, I
But
don't
the
want."
Downtown Merchant Association represents the merchants downtown.
I hear you loud and clear. And
Well,
all
let's-
I'm saying is that the merchants were not objecting. It's the people who are running these organizations that were not receptive.
Okay, we can, thank you for your information, and we'll be discussing that, Mr. Weaver's issues once it comes back to council.
Very good.
Excuse me, to the agency's discussion. Jean Maluccio, followed by Judy Kendall.
Good afternoon. I'm Jean Maluccio, president of the Crescenta Valley Chamber of Commerce. And we have been looking at some of this in some of the meetings we've had. I did just get this notice Friday also and sent it out to some of the businesses locally on Foothill. As you know, Foothill is split between county and city of Glendale. And I have been out talking to maybe 50, 60 businesses recently in the Glendale portion due to something we're working with planning, and they are all looking for something to happen. I think the whole idea is great. I think they're going to just be happy to hear you are doing something, but they're going to want to know a little bit more about what's entailed and what's involved with them. However, when I did send it out to some of the businesses over the weekend, I did get a reply back from Bob Smith Toyota, who is probably our biggest tax base up there, and they are in favor of it. They just want to make sure that we're able to reach the public, the people who live there, so that they know about it. Foothill, if you have not been in Foothill, and I'm sure you have, the cars go about 45 miles an hour, so it's really hard to see a business. So how it gets out to them, the public, that this business is participating is very important. And even if one business here doesn't do it, but the business next door does do it, that business next door is going to get some publicity from it just by the person going in there. So I think since we haven't had really a lot of time to explain it to everybody, the whole idea is good, and I think they're going to be glad that the city is doing something for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Kendall, followed by Beatrice Porto.
Good afternoon. Judy Kendall with the Glendale Chamber of Commerce. And first, I'd like to say that we really commend the city for taking the steps of really looking into this type of program, and the Chamber will certainly do everything possible to assist in making it successful should it be approved and be fully developed. We do have some suggestions and some concerns, and one would be the outreach to people in the community and to the merchants, because that's a very critical part of the success of the program. And it would appear from the staff report, which we just saw for the first time on Friday, that this is being done pretty much in-house, and we're wondering if you have consulted with a marketing expert that has worked with this type of program. And another suggestion would be that since this program is being designed to be expanded upon in the future, that we look at something special for the automobile dealers, something on the order of what the city of Lancaster's doing. It wouldn't have to be exactly the same thing, but Lancaster has a card, and it's a shop and dine card. And if someone purchases an automobile from the Lancaster Auto Mall, they receive a rebate for the registration fee by way of a shop and dine card, and that card is used at one of the merchants or several of the merchants that are participating in the program. So we'd like to see something for the auto dealers, since it's such a large part of the tax base for the city. Other than that, again, we commend you. We will jump in and help in any way we can. We are asking that you give it a little more time and listen to the concerns of some of the merchants that will be speaking today. Everyone kind of comes from a different direction and has some different ideas and some very valid concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Beatrice Porto, followed by Helen McDonough.
Good afternoon. Basically, just with the same thing that
And
you
you
said.
and you are, in case no one knows.
Betty from Portos. What Judy was saying, that's a great idea. We think, we've been around for a long time, so this is something that we will back up, something that's going to help, the merchant community as a whole. We do have some concerns about the implementation and I think going forward what we need to do is have more meetings with the city. I heard of it on Wednesday, and they came in and brought us a paper, but we really didn't have a chance to give any input. So what we need to do is have more meetings and, get some input so you guys get some of those wonderful ideas that all the merchants have. For me, the 10% discount card wouldn't work. Below 10% discount as it is, but maybe another part of the program, could be beneficial. So we just need to sit down, and I think we should make it a big deal. I mean, more merchants should be involved, not just a few people that show up to the merchants meetings, because this is going to be helping everybody on the boulevard. So a bigger meeting, more information, more feedback from the project, and some input from us would be very helpful. Thank you, Ave, for coming up with this $150,000. We don't know where it came out of, but we're happy it's here. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen McDonough, followed by Eric Olson.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen McDonough. I'm representing the DGMA board today, and I'm also the owner of Massage Envy Glendale. We would like to request, as in the DGMA and Massage Envy, that this proposal be delayed until major partners like the DGMA and some of the other business associations can have a chance to meet more with development services. As Betty Porto mentioned, we've had a brief 20-minute presentation on this last Wednesday at our regular DGMA meeting, and we got a copy of the report on Friday. We simply have not had enough time to fully comprehend this plan, but in talking with my fellow merchants, we definitely have some major concerns. The goals of the program are not clearly stated. We're not sure how this program would be measured. That's another important thing here. Is it successful? We see some things missing from the proposal that we know as business owners really work, one of them being email marketing. I did hear Ken mention email marketing today. It was not mentioned in the proposal, but that is a quick, cheap, easy way to market both to the Glendale community and to consumers outside the Glendale community. The other area that was not mentioned, and this is a fairly sore subject right now for a lot of the merchants in the downtown area, and today, is probably as good a day as any to bring it up. A-frame signage on the sidewalks is probably the single biggest source of new customers for us. And I'm not talking Massage Envy, I'm talking Porto's Cake Shop, I'm talking BJ's Printing, Subway Sandwiches, Universal Rugs. All of these merchants have spoken with me. They're completely intimidated at the moment by neighbourhood service inspectors, and we really need to ask the city, to ask the neighbourhood services department to take the lead and work with the merchants on some kind of new A-frame sign ordinance in the downtown area. If I take my A-frame sign in, already my prospect count is down about 50%. If I take it in, I will have no new prospects coming into my business, and my business will die because it's not growing. So this is an area that we really need help with, and nobody seems to be listening. Business owners, when we look at the proposal, we see a lot of different media proposed. We can tell you as business owners from doing marketing over the last 2 to 3 years that probably 50% of the things mentioned in the plan will absolutely not work. And we really want to give the city feedback on where those dollars should be best spent. One of the other things that the merchants would like to know is why the big rush. Is $150,000 going away at the end of this month? What is the rush? Why all of a sudden do we have to make decisions in a couple of days? So finally, I'd like to conclude with please delay and instruct business development services to work with each business district. We have a lot to contribute as business owners for the good of Glendale. It's a unique destination with unique offerings and should be marketed that way.
Thank you.
I will just say that one merchant has a concern about the shop Glendale. We just want to make sure we don't alienate consumers from the surrounding communities. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Eric Olson.
Eric Olson, Vice President and Director of the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association. We did have a visitation that estimated about 20 minutes from a member of the staff, and I think you could fairly describe it as a sort of a brainstorming session around what I trust is a sort of a rough draft of a document that they were planning to consider using. We think it became obvious that a lot of valuable input is needed to make this really work the way we want. We really appreciate, however, the fact that the agency wants to do this initiative. The gentleman that were here speaking about the card, I checked with my fellow merchants. None of the three of us has either heard of the card or of any overture on their part to come and speak to us. They got something good. We're delighted to talk to them. Another point that I had heard both at our meeting and at the Glendale Business Coordinating Council was the importance of a program that is fashioned not just at people inside Glendale, but to promote ourselves to the buying community around. Not in an exclusionary way or sort of an area warfare kind of a way, but hey, we've got something special here. We're prepared to promote ourselves, to compete for your business. We're a great place to come and shop. We encourage, and the staff has indicated they intend to, that they meet with the various business organizations and get this thing polished up. We're ready to do our part. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the last card I have on this item. So let's go to the agency. Mr. Quintero.
Well, I'm very glad we're having this discussion today. What I've advocated when I first joined the Glendale Chamber of Commerce back in the 70s, and when I became president of the Glendale Chamber of Commerce, I don't even remember when, is a consistent marketing program on behalf of the city of Glendale. Not throw a bunch of money over a 6-month period or a 1-year period, not focus on one particular type of marketing program, but just a consistent yearly, 1 year after the other. How many years have we seen the Cerritos Auto Square? I mean, I don't remember not seeing a Cerritos Auto Square ad. I mean, so that's what I think we need to focus on. This is obviously the first step, but that's what I'm particularly interested in. And I'm also a big believer that we need to focus on the surrounding community. In this case, we could target Atwater, we could target Eagle Rock, Los Feliz, Silver Lake. In the north, we can target Tujunga, Sunland, and La Cañada to the east for both Foothill and Montrose. And I think if we do this, if we put together a consistent package, these are natural shopping areas for us anyway. I think we're going to do just fine. Now, what worries me about waiting, when you tell government to wait, we may be having this discussion 2 years from now. So I'd kind of like to, maybe, obviously we can't enact everything, but I'd like to approve the $150,000 and then maybe start with something generic, cable ads, start with the bus stops, Beeline, the panel advertising, just kind of get something going while we refine exactly what we want to do with all the different merchant associations. And it is imperative that we bring in the chamber, we bring in the Montrose Chamber and all of the different merchant associations, and also work with merchants, as I mentioned, on Foothill and Colorado, and it can't exclusively be our typical Adams Square and Kenneth Village and so forth. But at any rate, I'm happy we're having the discussion. I'm glad there's plenty of participation by the different business groups, and hopefully we'll get the ball going and we will consistently market Glendale. Let me just say one more thing. I found out through a friend, I would drop him off on Central in front of the Galleria where he would catch the bus, and he lives in Mid-Wilshire. And I would consistently see just tons of people. Sometimes the buses were totally packed. I asked him, who are they? Who are the people getting on the bus? They were shoppers from Mid-Wilshire that don't have cars. There is a direct connection from a bus to that Galleria, and so they're literally boarding buses in Mid-Wilshire, Vermont, those neighborhoods, and taking a bus to shop at the Glendale Galleria. I wouldn't have known. I didn't have a clue. Maybe the Galleria merchants and General Growth might have known. So anyway, I think in this era of niche marketing, I think we can reach some target groups, and I think we can increase the amount of business here in the city of Glendale.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Well, I think it's a good idea. I don't think we've had enough input. This is pretty broad-based. I think we ought to be out involving everybody from Foothill down to the southern border. That is a merchant, because all merchants are not on brand, or all on Honolulu or Foothill. They're all over this community, and there's got to be a better way of getting out and finding out what they perceive we need. This is not the first time we've discussed this. Brand Boulevard cars have been in here over the years, asking the city to help promote sales of cars on brand. Economic development has been up here for years in different ways to help promote brand, the banners on brand, whatever. We've looked at it many different ways. So I personally think it ought to be delayed. It's not the city delaying it. It's delaying it for the benefit of the merchants, the others in the city, to give the critical input that we need. And that hasn't been done yet. Now, stepping back from it, looking at the big picture, because I listen to CNN every day, I'm now reading that people are eating much more at home now. They're not going out to local restaurants. Why? Because the economy is suffering. So to save pennies, dollars, they're eating at home way more. I hear the economy is really down. Foreclosures on homes, people are putting off buying cars, car sales are down 30%. Businesses all over, I talk merchants on brand, they're hurting. I ask them, their business is down 20-30%. And all of a sudden, this program's going to come along and solve all those problems at the cost of $150,000 coming out of our reserves, when we're getting prepared to cut another $4 million out of the city budget. The two don't ring true. Good idea, good program, needs more input, and really ought to be implemented when the economy is turning. So you have people that have a different outlook on their future. They have to have confidence in the stock market. They got to have confidence in buying products. When that starts to turn, in my view, that's the time you hit. Whether you give discount cards, VIPs, whatever. Yes, we ought to be tapping our surrounding community. We now have some viable destination points in Glendale. It can be an anchor to draw people in. But to me, I'm not voting for this today because it's not done right yet. Outreach hasn't been done, and I don't think it's the right time in the economy to tell people, get in your car in Burbank, spend the gas money to drive over to Glendale, to go to a local restaurant in Glendale rather than a restaurant in Burbank, or to eat at home. Just the wrong timing. Thank you.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily agree with some of my colleagues on this. I have a couple of questions and then some comments. Mr. Lansfam, who have we spoken to in terms of merchants associations?
Mr. Chairman, Agency Member Draymond.
And I don't mean individuals, I mean organizationally.
Yeah. You asked us, this was on the 10th, and so while we were putting this outline together in literally 9 days, so that we could get it back to you and start this conversation, we informally talked to the Chamber of Commerce, the downtown merchants. We tried to make contact with the president of Montrose. We did speak to one of the tenants up there. We've talked about it informally to the folks up on Foothill. We attended a business mixer up there. All of it has been informal because we needed to know from you, is this the direction you want us to go? I think all the input that they've given us is valid. They can tell us best how they need this to work. The one thing that we do want to caution in all of our conversations is this needs to work for a broad range of business in Glendale in different areas. And I think some of you had touched on it's not just the downtown or Brand Boulevard. It's all over citywide. So we put this outline together for you to get some initial feedback from you, to begin the conversation. We can start to refine this and hone it a little bit better.
You were just now touching around the word citywide. It's meant to be a citywide program, and that includes, obviously, areas more than simply mid-Brand and downtown, as you point out. It is South Glendale. It is South Glendale Avenue. It is the Brand Boulevard cars. It's Spar Heights. It's the Foothill Corridor. It's Montrose. It's Verdugo City. It's Kenneth Village. It's Adams Square. And as Mr. Weaver implies, everything in between. Very high marks for bringing this forward. We need to do this. Someone asked, I think Ms. McDonough asked, what's the rush? Well, the rush is just a sense that the economy is bad on the national level and that it's finding its way home on the local level, and the sense that we are all getting from constituents who are small business owners that we need to do something. So I'm very proud that we are doing something. However, the question is what? And I don't want to see us get off on the wrong foot with this. We need more input citywide from merchants, from chambers of commerce, from merchants associations. I think we need to meet with them formally and get formal input from a formal outreach rather than sort of anecdotal, incidental, we tried to reach this one, but we couldn't, but we talked to one tenant and we ran it by this one, we ran it by that one. And I understand, Phil, that this is all as a result of this council and the agency wanting to get something rolling on behalf of a local business. So, a couple of other things that were mentioned. It's not specifically related to the Buy Glendale, but I don't want this to get lost, Mr. City Attorney and Mr. Chair, related to the concern about A-frames and the suspension of some of our regulations that deal with trying to create a sort of uniform look to our business districts, but may be a hurt right now more than a help. If we could at least look into that and talk to some of the representatives, the Chamber, for example, in downtown, and the Downtown Glendale Merchants Association, in terms of seeing what could be done, as long as we could possibly make these uniform with some kind of oversight, but make it also temporary. I think we're also focusing a lot on this card issue, and one was suggested here, the American Loyalty Card. I don't have a particular problem with that kind of a concept. I don't know whether this is the one or not, but that's something we should look at, and we should be talking to the gentleman. But to me, that's not the crux of this issue. To me, this is more about providing a localized, a centralized portal for all of our retail venues throughout the city in an effort to help our businesses with business retention. And I don't think there is any time like the present to begin to get that in place with a website. But I also am picking up on the fact that sitting here listening to all of the comments and some of the answers from staff, that we don't know our own venues that well ourselves. You know, we can name them, but I don't think we know that much about the character of them or how they operate and how they function. I think we need to go and do that homework, and we need to do it relatively quickly and bring that back too. I'm not ready to move forward with this just yet. I agree with Mr. Weaver on that. I think that this is something that needs to happen as quickly as we can do it, but we've got to get the right mix of products we're going to offer, in other words, and we need the input, we need the outreach in order to do that correctly. Anyway, I'm very encouraged by the discussion of it, and I was very interested to hear the input today. I was hoping we'd hear more input, frankly. I think we need to make a concerted effort to get to all of the merchants. This is going to be a citywide program, supposedly. So, you know, certain things may not work in certain areas where they may work very well in other areas. Phil, we just need more input. You need more input, and your department needs more input before we set sail on this. It is a great idea, and it's a great response to what you've been hearing from this agency, the council, and the public, and particularly all of our merchants citywide, is that we need help. And marketing Glendale is a fantastic thing for the city in a good economy and a bad economy and an uncertain economy. But we need more input as to what's really going to help, rather than say it's about a loyalty card when we don't know if that's what our associations want or need. It's about a marketing program in newspapers or whatever if we're not sure that that's what they need. So anyway, Mr. Chair, thank you. That's I'll just leave it there for the moment.
Mr. Yusefian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chair, before I was council, I was a small business owner, very small, one-man operation. Can't get any smaller than that. I'll tell you what I look at this. I think it needs to be a two-pronged approach, number one. One is try to attract some business from surrounding neighborhood to come, and it's not just business, just not retail. There are many businesses who are not retail. They're manufacturing, they're light manufacturing, industrial, so on and so forth. And they're suffering. So if we want to keep them, to stop the bleeding, what you need to do is reduce their cost of operating in this city so they can survive. So if the income is not coming in, you need to reduce your cost. There are certain things they could do, but there are certain things that they can't. So what is it that the city can do? Can the city subsidize their rents? No. So what is it that we can do? In my opinion, there are many jobs, many businesses that are required to have certain permits, hazardous waste inspections, and so on and so forth, that the city provides on an annual basis and charges them a fee. I think maybe we should look into not increasing those fees and freezing those fees for the next 3 years. So this way their cost doesn't go up, at least it stays, and look and see if there's a way to reduce that. in any business, I don't care what you do, one of your steady costs is cost of power. So if you are a mechanic shop, you got a lot more power, and if you are a grocery store, you're spending a lot of electricity keeping those refrigerators going. So maybe the other thing that we need to look into is go to GWP and say, okay, how can we have some savings in GWP that we could reduce some of our rates for small business? So this will, small businesses' cost will come down. So this way they can at least stay here. The second prong is after you have dealt with what we could do to reduce their cost of doing business, is to go out there and see how we can attract customers to their businesses. And to be honest with you, as I go through this list and look at putting signs on a refuse truck, I think that's I don't consider that to be very exciting, to look at a trash truck and say, come to Glendale. So that doesn't really work for me. I agree with Mr. Quintero when we talked about the Cerritos Auto Mall. God, where have we heard that before? Let me see. Radio and TV ads almost 12 times a day. Do I read anything about them on, let's say, City Views? No. Do I read about it in my utility book? No. So for us to spend $31,000 for a mailer in a utility bill doesn't do as much as putting that into commercials, 30-second commercials on television or radio. Radio can really get out there. You know, some of these channels are 50,000 watt channels. They go all over. Just walk to Americana, go to Galleria, walk Brand, and talk to some of the people who are walking Brand. You'll be surprised how many of them don't live in Glendale. They come from outside. Frank is right. A lot of them come all the way down from LA, get a bus, get over here to do their shopping because they don't have those type of shopping facilities out there. But we need to advertise to get to them, not just advertise among ourselves. So I like to move a little bit faster than slower, but sometimes when you move too fast, you have a tendency to trip over yourself. So I think this is a good step, and I don't blame the staff for bringing this to us in a short notice, because this agency gave them direction to get moving. And by golly, they got moving. But now that it's in here, it's great. It has attracted your attention. You are here, you're listening, and you're giving input. And so the work is going to go forward. But I think, as the gentleman said earlier, it's not just the merchant associations. I know those numbers. They're not that many. Some associations have 15 members. Some are very large and they have 200 members. But there's a majority of the city that is not represented by any associations. Nevertheless, there are also sources of income to the city through their taxes. So we need to get as many stakeholders involved, so this way we can come up with something better. But I'm looking at some of these things. These are things we tried in the past and failed and didn't work. I don't know why we need to continue to work on those, and I think we need to talk to them to see some of the items that they see it's useless. So what I like to see is a two-pronged approach. What can you do to reduce their cost or help them in any way we can to keep them in business? And what can we do to attract customers to their business? And, you know, in all due respect to the gentleman, don't use the city seal card. I know it was a sample, but nevertheless, I like the fact that it says a VIP card instead of loyalty card, because when you say loyalty, then as one speaker says, we don't want people to say, gee, people of Glendale are only loyal to their own city, and we don't want to balkanize, because the way retail business and any business works is you attract customers from all over. And when I did business, was same thing. Sometimes I had a job all the way down in Lemon Heights in Orange County, and sometimes had a job next door to my house. So, and you go wherever the business is, and you bring all the customers from everywhere. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I keep saying
Chair.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair. I thank Phil and his staff for coming to us with this program, and I really do think we need to get going on this right away. I don't think we can afford to analyze this in too much depth because every week, every month, we're seeing businesses that are going out of business that could otherwise be receiving customers directed to them through a citywide marketing campaign. I don't think that the average resident of Glendale really understands that when you shop in Glendale, you're doing two things, more than two things. You're keeping a local retailer afloat. You're providing tax revenues for the city through sales tax, and those sales tax revenues go to support our essential city services. The program with the police and fire chief several months ago regarding the Brand Boulevard of cars, as I hear it from the car dealers, was very successful. There's no reason why we can't have an ad like that up and running tomorrow. I don't understand what the pushback is from the merchants with that. I mean, they're telling the residents, shop in Glendale. The discount card has some subtleties and some details that I think do need to be worked out. I think the retailers need to give a little more input, but a simple citywide marketing campaign, number one, identifying the different shopping areas of the city so everyone knows where they are, what's in them, what sort of stores are available, restaurants, services, etc., really would go a long way towards informing all of us in the community what's out there. Some people might not be aware of that great French bakery in Kenneth Village, or that great pet store in Montrose, or the great restaurant down on South Brand. So the message doesn't have to be too complicated at first. And Phil, there's always time for you to conduct these meetings to fine-tune the message as the general message gets out there. And that's to shop in Glendale. You keep our own retailers afloat. The tax revenues go a long way. You support jobs that are maintained by these services, these retailers, these restaurants. And then let's fine-tune and refine that message as time goes on. We don't have to spend a lot of money. A lot of this budget, and I think money is the big question here, we don't have to spend a lot of this budget right away. That's about $22,000 for the discount card, about $32,000 for the postage, those flyers. The rest are different forms of advertising in print and electric media. So I would really like to get on it without too much hesitation, with the understanding that there's a lot of revision to go through. We did throw this at you just a couple weeks ago, but I think it's important that we move with all due haste to sort of get the ball rolling and get the it's really an educational process as well, and you can't start the education too early. I would like it if we could give direction to start with the basic levels of advertising on GTV6, explaining the whole sales tax issues and the support of our retailers and the different shopping districts as well. But of course, we have to act as an agency on that. So I'll leave it to the group as a whole. Mr. Quintero.
Well, I agree with you. For me, it's about starting with something, with just generic ads that you put on cable and 30-second spots, and hopefully we can actually refine a message to include some of the neighborhoods I talked about that aren't covered by charter necessarily, but just something to get the ball rolling so the word is out, people start thinking about shopping in Glendale, and then we'll go through all the processes that we've talked about this afternoon. But I don't even think I'd go into the newspapers, to tell you the truth. I think I'd I'd go on cable and kind of get the message out that way. Couldn't cost too much.
Mr. Yusefian.
I agree. I think we should put a generic ad in a 30-second ad in the cable. I would say for someone who just put a whole bunch of ads in the cable, your 440 ads for 4 weeks with all those different channels you have listed, not going anywhere. I have twice as much, and I've seen it only 3 times myself, and I literally look for my own ads on TV. So when you
Everyone needs a hobby, Mr.
I know.
Yusefian.
Well, I'm trying to keep them honest. I want to make sure that they're playing it because they're charging me.
I've never seen it. Did you put it in?
Well, I did. And so this is the problem. So we're putting only 440 ads for $5,500. You know, nobody's going to be able to see that in 4 weeks. Come on. The ads don't cost that much. We're not putting it on Channel 7 or Channel 2 or, you know, these are going on cable. So the region is going to see it, where the charter is. You need to spend at least 4 times as much in that 4 weeks for people to even see it. I would do that, and I would do a radio spot. When we did a radio spot for the auto dealers, that goes out and wide, and you really hear that. So those 2 things that I think we should start in general. Come to Glendale, great city, and maybe name some of the areas. It has an auto mall. It has the official Old Town in Montrose. It has Kenneth Village and this and that. Come to Glendale, shop in Glendale, enjoy the atmosphere, something positive, and just start with that, and then the rest of the stuff is going to be a little bit tricky on the cards and so on and so forth. Banners, this, that, you know. We just need to get people to come to Glendale and spend money.
Mr. Draymond.
Okay, well, here's why I don't disagree with the idea of getting going. I disagree with getting going right now. Here's why. It's great, advertising, do some cable ads, do some radio. It's like saying we're going to go on this great trip. We all pile into the car, load the kids in the back seat, put the luggage in the car, and say, where are we going? And that's the problem. We haven't done the outreach yet to know, for a citywide program, what is needed in order to do this promotion. For example, you know, I hear my colleagues saying, let's do some ads that say, shop in Glendale. Where are these ads going to be airing? In Glendale?
No, in charter. Goes all over the place.
Charter goes all over the place, but where are we going to talk to Phil about targeting?
Yes.
Do we know yet, Phil? Do you know where most of the customers in Montrose come from?
I do not,
Shoppers?
Mr. Mayor.
I would guess you did, or in Kenneth Village, or Mid-Brand. Mid-Brand's close to home, and there's some of the merchants here. You know, would it surprise you to know that a huge component of the actual shoppers in the Montrose shopping park are from Valencia and Santa Clarita, and another huge portion are from Sunland Tahunga. Not that many from La Cañada Flintridge. So, you know, we don't know the nuances of all of these different areas, and we need to find that out before we start placing ads. To place ads on behalf of one area of the one retail district of the city, you know, because remember, this is supposed to be for everybody, and to say, shop in Glendale, but we're putting it on our local charter. We're primarily telling people who live in Glendale to shop in Glendale. So, I mean, I think we need a little more organization before we start the ball rolling. Doesn't mean it has to take a long time, and Mr. Chair, I'm not suggesting we take a long time, but I think we need to understand where we're going and who we're advertising to before we just start throwing money at TV and radio spots. Yes, that's it.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, if I could, one of the important questions that we need to have answered, both from you and as we talk to the merchants, is what is this program and who is the audience, just as you've suggested. If it is a buy Glendale, we want to target people in Glendale and say it's important for you to shop and support your local merchant. And there's a reason to do that. They're your family, your friends, your neighbors. They own those businesses. They work in those businesses. It helps in our community. If the focus of the program is to attract people from elsewhere, then we have a little bit of a different campaign, and either way, we need to talk to those merchants and say, what would work best for you? What we've tried to give you is a shop local by Glendale to the Glendale community to support their own. That's what the focus of this is about. If you want something different, we can work on that as well.
Mr. Draymond.
I agree with you 100%, Phil. They are two different ways of going, and maybe both are the ways to go. But I think that we need input in order to know that. The one is a philosophical kind of thing. Buy in your own city. Invest your dollars in your own city. Keep your dollars in your own city. This is how it benefits not only businesses, but you as residents of the city. Okay, that's one message. But if you're talking about promotion, that's not a philosophical thing. It's a marketing thing, and that's a very different kind of issue. And I'm not sure that. I'm not sure. I know I don't have the input to give direction on whether we should pursue both or one or the other of those.
Okay, Mr. Yusefian.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, if we have a little bit of a discussion on this, because I'm trying to understand what my colleague is talking about, and I agree with what he's saying, but I think what I'm trying to get across is that we could pile on the car, we can get the engine started, we could kind of drive down the street and at least kind of go around our neighborhood a few times before we decide if we're going to go to Oklahoma or we're going to go to Texas. As you very eloquently put it, there are two different things. You want to bring people from outside, and we want to also do Shop Glendale. If you do the charter, which I looked at the demographics of it when I was doing my my ads for an election, if you're in Burbank, you're going to see it. If you're in Tahunga, you're going to see it. If you are in Pasadena, you're not going to see it. So there are certain parts of it that you're going to see within the surrounding area. I think what I'm saying is let's at least start doing something. The business is bleeding. Let's put a tourniquet on it until we're able to get that surgeon to come in and do this, what it needs to do. And so I think we know locally, if we're going to do Shop Glendale, we could do the ads, and then we have enough time to go out there and do the research for the bigger ads somewhere down the line. Because I like to know what the rest of the merchants want to do too. And it needs to be a little bit more sophisticated than just putting a couple of ads in the local area. You need to go out if you want to bring in more people. But let's not lose what we have now and then go out there and grab some more.
Mr. Lanzafame.
Mr. Chairman, this campaign that we've outlined for you is specifically to raise awareness and promotion within Glendale. And again, using your analogy, Mr. Yusefian, we could take the car out of the driveway and have that kind of campaign and decide, do we want to go to both places and do reach outside of Glendale to bring people in as well as educate people within, one or the other. But we acknowledge, and we put in our plan here, that we need that input to make that decision.
Mr. Quintero.
Well, look, let's talk about motorcycles, not cars. Just kidding. Well, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we at least, appropriate the money, put together some ads that would just sort of focus on keeping shoppers here in Glendale shoppers here in Glendale. Let's see what you've got, and if we don't like it, then I guess we'll go in a different direction, and in the meantime, we'll work on all the things that we're all in agreement on. I think it's all about whether we want to wait or we want to go ahead and get something going. We're just getting something going, getting it out in the public.
it sounds like we have as Mr. Draymond recognized, there's really a two-phase. There's an inner promotion within the city, and there's an external promotion for our different retail areas that often draw well outside our borders. I would like to, as an intermediate step, give some direction to at least start with a very basic inner city promotion. I mean, if we get something up and this weekend we can direct 2 or 3, 4 or 5, 10 people to buy cars in Glendale on our brand boulevard of cars rather than go to Universal City or to El Monte or wherever, I think it's certainly a step in the right direction, and it would hopefully get and a lot of people don't realize it, much of our finances are generated from sales tax revenues. Unless you're really a city hall or a municipal finance junkie, you don't understand that that's where much of our finance comes from. With direction to continue work with the association groups to fine-tune a more direct and specific and targeted both inner as well as external marketing promotion. Is there any support for at least taking a small step in that direction and giving that direction? Mr. Draymond.
Absolutely. I am happy to orchestrate off of both your comments, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Quintero's, in that I'm prepared to appropriate the funds, and I am happy to do that to get a general promotion of, buy in Glendale, which is more that philosophical part of let's keep the money here in our city, and here's what it does for you. It's sort of a consumer educational piece. However, let's also keep in mind that it's $150,000, and that doesn't come along. This council and this agency doesn't appropriate that kind of money for city retail promotions every day. It's a limited number, and this can go really fast. And we can be putting a lot of very expensive eggs in a basket that we're not sure about right now. So I would support what you're talking about, what I'm calling this consumer education piece. It doesn't really promote any one district or one area or type of business. It's saying shop in Glendale. Here's what your dollar buys you in Glendale. It's everything from the student who's selling the yearbook ad, who goes into our stores and says, "I need your help, Mr. and Mrs. Store owner." It goes to keeping the the mighty wheels of Glendale government rolling along, and so on. It directly affects the quality of life of the city. I'm happy to go that direction. I just caution that this is a limited amount of funds at a time when funds are difficult to come by, and I just don't want to see it tossed out there without doing the work. The outreach for something more specific, we must do the work. We have to talk to the people we're supposed to be benefiting. So,
why don't we let's agree to limit the funding and not spend any until we can come back, until Phil, you can come back to us with a conceptual, I don't know how you do, with a markup boards or something that would address these types of philosophical promotion back to the agency. We'll give our input in on it. We'll perhaps throw a meager budget together and then set you off with the other tasks that we've...
Mr. Chair, I think in the advertising world they would turn to Phil and say, "Phil, sweetie baby, bring us something we can run up the flagpole and let's see if anybody salutes."
Let me go to Mr. Yusefian and then
I think he pretty much said it. I think maybe we should have him bring something to us, have GTV6 do a little commercial, and then bring it to us. We could see it, preview it, and if you're going to buy from Times Warner, they will probably give you a list of what it costs, what the buy is, how many spots, where you can put it, and then we will put certain amount of money into it, and then we can go from there. But let's see something first, and then go from there. I was not about to vote for $150,000 for this anyway, because.
Mr. Lanza.
Mr. Chairman, if you could give us just a small amount of money so we can produce the spots with GTV6, we need to pay for their time, and we will. We can do that, bring it back to you with some ideas for an awareness campaign. In the meantime, we can start lining up more formal meetings with business groups and find out what else of a program would you like to see. We can bring all that back to you. It may not be next week, but because we'll need some time to do the voiceover for the spots and the whole works. But we can do that if you'll give us just a small amount of money. My guess is even
How much do you need?
$5,000 would probably.
$5. It says $2,000 or $1,500 in your budget here.
Isn't our credit any good with GTV6?
I'll go and ask.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
a city government. I mean, we're coming back. I mean, I don't think the redevelopment agency is running anywhere. Neither is GTV6. So, I mean, have them make it, bring it here. We'll look at it. We say it's okay. You tell us it's going to cost whatever it is, and then we just pay them. I mean, they're not going to go anywhere.
I merely wanted to be able to give them an account.
It's like money from one pocket into the other one, guys.
I have no idea how much a production or at least a pre-production would run for one of those things. A couple thousand. Mr. Draymond?
Well, the bottom line is I would hate to see them produce spots. So we're going to go on the air with them, and then they show it to us, and we say, I'm thinking that as a citywide thing, maybe, it's wonderful to promote Brand Boulevard of cars, but how's that really helping me with my bakery that you were referring to in Adams Square? And, maybe, Phil, that's too specific. I'm just a little concerned to go ahead and, can they bring back a concept?
We'll bring back concepts if you like.
Something we can look at, and then we can, this council, Phil, and this agency will. Well, public's seeing it right now. We're not just kicking the issue around. We've kicked it around the block several times here. We've been to Oklahoma and Arkansas and
but it's healthy.
Everywhere. So,
but it's healthy.
No, the debate is very good. You're right, Mr. Youssef. And I'm just saying that I'd hate to spend the money and then take it up here and say, that's not really what we're talking about.
I mean, storyboard kind of things.
We'll put together some concepts, right. and if you'll direct us, we'll also start some formal meetings with business groups to find out their interest and where they would like to see a program go.
We can start with the.
I think it's great. I think Phil and Ken can act them out for us. Storyboards. What do you think?
Ms. Kendall has just given me the program, so.
Okay.
There you go.
Mr. Quintero.
I think it's a very good idea. And let's also not minimize the internet and what's available there. Hopefully we'll be able to do for a certain category of shopper and certain demographics, it's all about the internet, so.
Okay, so is there a motion for 6B1 with those directives to staff?
So moved.
And then 6B2 is not, clearly we're not going to,
Doesn't sound like you want to act on that. That's the appropriation resolution.
Mr. Chair, on 6B1, should we put a date on it to make sure that this kind of comes back to us?
Sooner, rather. Do you have a date, Phil, that you feel comfortable with? Especially in light of the fact it's just going to be a very broad.
Can we have a month to bring it back? Because that'll give us 2 weeks to put something together and then start staff reports. Or 3 weeks. You tell me when you'd like it back, and we'll push for that date.
During that month, Phil, can your department also start some of the public outreach that we need to be doing anyway?
We would. I'm taking your direction that that's what you want us to do. Right. We'll start that immediately.
Okay. I think it's
4
fine.
weeks?
A month, 4 weeks.
Okay, well, we'll go with a month if there's no objection. So if there's a motion on 6B1 with those directives.
There's a motion, no second.
There's a second now.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
No.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Chairman Najarian.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair,
Mr. Weaver.
may I caution staff that potentially there could be a new makeup of the council here in 2 or 3 weeks who may potentially give a different direction. So proceed with caution.
Thank you.
Ta-da.
Changes?
Dun-dun-dun. Okay, yes. Duly noted, there is an election April 7th. 3 seats are up. And then in 2 years, no, just kidding. Is there anything else? Agency members or staff comments? Okay, hearing none. We have
to
no new
adjourn.
business. Is there a second?
Second.
We're adjourned for the agency.
Okay.
Betty Porto.
No,
I guess we're in between meetings, so.
won't
Is
be
there
on
city attorney?
TV.
Can she?
We're in between meetings, Betty, so if you want to say something
Say something.
before we start.
Nobody will hear it. I won't.
Yes. When you're talking about a campaign, to me, a campaign for Glendale is putting Glendale on the map. A lot of people come to Glendale because we're there, and they don't know anything else about Glendale. When in 2005, we had our best year, and it was because of Hugh Hauser came to our stop, and it was called California's Gold, and because of him, had people coming from all over the states. So we can do something like that instead of just something local. If we can put Glendale on the map, I think all of the people that live in Glendale would agree that they want Glendale and surrounding areas on the map. They wouldn't object to that. Now, coupons and having to give discount, that's something else. But doing a little thing like Hugh Hauser did for us, for the whole area, putting Glendale on the map, to me that would be something that you could get everybody to agree on, and it could be done rather quickly again. Our best year was that because of that guy came to town and
Betty, we'll bring Hugh back here and let him do a historic home.
on Glendale.
On Glendale, all the
City of
historic
Glendale.
districts.
But I mean, in a station that people watch. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, Betty, can we rule out the bass fishing channel for Ordos? All right.
What a historic. Bet you'll come back and do the historic homes of Glendale. They'll come from all over. You know, we do have a Frank Lloyd Wright
Yep.
on the tour here. Some of the old ones back from the 20s there.
Yep. No, you're right. You're right.
We just have
Great
to write
idea.
them in and
In Brand Library.
Great idea.
No, den vetter långt fram med.
He would hallucinate on Brand.
then they'll stop
Okay.
on Grand while they're here to get something to eat.
Folks, we still have another meeting to go, so if you're leaving, if you could quietly exit out the back or settle into your seats. We're going to continue on with the business. I so seldom get to use this that I just really thank you for giving
Jason
me the
over there.
opportunity.
We got Jason here now.
Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Sabian.
He's yawning too.
All right. Mr. Kasakian, are we ready?
Yes.
Can I go ahead? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to the joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Housing Authority for Tuesday, March 24th, 2009. Mr. City Clerk, would you call the roll?